I'll be talking about 10 errors and forgotten Sunnah of the day of Jumu'ah. The day of Jumu'ah is the best day of the week. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Khayru yawmin talat alayhi shamsu yawmul Jumu'ah." The best day on which the sun shines is the day of Jumu'ah. Fi khuliqa Adam. Adam was created on this day. Wa fihi udkhila al-jannah. It was taken into Jannah on the day of Jumu'ah. Wa fihi ukhrija minha. It was taken out of the Jannah on the day of Jumu'ah. Wa la taqumu as-sa'atu illa fi yawmil Jumu'ah. The last hour shall not be established unless on the day of Jumu'ah. So the day of Jumu'ah is a day in which the believers congregate to celebrate the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to worship Him as an ummah. And this is what is called Yawmul Jumu'ah, the day of congregation, when we come together in the masjid. And this is a weekly celebration. The next celebration that brings the believers together more than the day of Jumu'ah is the day of Arafah. On this day, there are certain etiquettes and virtues that we are expected as Muslims to do in order to gain the reward of the day of Jumu'ah. Sadly, we live in such a time when people are either ignorant of these etiquettes and virtues or they are negligent, lackadaisical about them. So I'm going to point out 10 errors stroke etiquette of the day of Jumu'ah that have been neglected by many Muslims. Number one, taking the shower of Jumu'ah. There's a terminology in Islamic jurisprudence known as ghuslu yawmil Jumu'ah, the shower of the day of Jumu'ah. It is established in the Sunnah as reported by many Sahaba, including Aus bin Aus, Abu Huraira, among other companions of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man iktasala yawm al-jumu'ati wa ghassala." Whoever takes a thorough shower on the day of Jumu'ah. In one of the reports, it is mentioned, "Man iktasala yawm al-jumu'ati ghusl al-janaba." Whoever takes the janaba bath or the like of the janaba bath on the day of Jumu'ah, and then the hadith continues. So, but let's stay on the first point, taking the Jumu'ah shower. It is recommended for every Muslim that intends to attend the Jumu'ah prayer to take a shower similar to what it takes for janaba. I've explained the shower of janaba in one of my videos. You can check my YouTube page to get the manner of the janaba bath. So it is recommended that on the day of Jumu'ah, you take the shower that you take for janaba. The difference between the two showers is that for janaba shower, you are relieving yourself of a major impurity. It is called raf'ul hadathil akbar. But for the Jumu'ah shower, you are only taking the shower because it is a sunnah act to take it. Many people today neglect this shower, and some of the reasons are, number one, many of us go to the Jumu'ah prayer either from schools or from offices or from our places of work. It doesn't have to be at the point when you're going for the Jumu'ah prayer that you have to take the shower. So for instance, as a student in the university or in secondary schools, you can take that shower early in the morning, either before or after taking your normal shower, and go to school. Then from school, you proceed to Jumu'ah. You would get the reward of taking the shower for Jumu'ah. Ditto for those who attend the Jumu'ah from their places of work. They can take that shower in the morning before leaving their homes, and whatever they do afterwards has no effect on the shower. So as Muslims, it behooves us to take this very seriously. Number two, going to the Jumu'ah very early. In all of the reports from Abu Huraira, Aus bin Aus, and other companions that reported the ahadith on the virtue of the day of Jumu'ah, it is mentioned, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man iktasala yawm al-jumu'ah wa ghassala wa btakara wa bakkara." That is the report of Aus bin Aus. Wa btakara wa bakkara, which means that he goes to the Jumu'ah prayer at the earliest time. So this is an emphasis to indicate the significance of going to the Jumu'ah prayer very early. In a report by Abu Huraira, and this report is in Sahihain, in Bukhari and Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man iktasala yawm al-jumu'ah," whoever takes shower on the day of Jumu'ah, and this is the shower of janaba, not like your usual shower, waroha, and he goes to the Jumu'ah prayer at the earliest time. This is the as-sa'atul ula, the first hour of the day of Jumu'ah, the Prophet ﷺ said, he would be given a reward, kaman korraba badanatan, like someone that has given a charity with a camel. So the reward he would receive would be like the size of a camel. Then whoever goes in the second hour, man raha fi as-sa'a thaniya, whoever goes in the second hour, kana kaman korraba bakara, will be given a reward similar to someone that has given a cow in charity. Whoever goes in the third hour will be given a reward like someone that has given a horned lamb in charity. Whoever goes in the fourth hour will receive a reward similar to someone that has given a chicken in charity. Whoever goes in the fifth hour will be given a reward similar to someone that has given an egg in charity. So this is how we rank in reward on the day of Jumu'ah for early attendance of the Jumu'ah. The Prophet ﷺ said, the moment the Imam enters the masjid, the angels who were assigned to be taking attendance and notes of those that have arrived the masjid will leave their duty post and will come straight into the masjid, yastami'una dhikra, to listen to the khutbah. So it is important for us to take this very seriously, going to the Jumu'ah very early. Apart from the fact that we get rewards of giving these charities, as have been explained by Prophet ﷺ, we also get to attain another etiquette of the day of Jumu'ah that has been abandoned, and that is sitting close to the Imam. So what is intended by the hours of the day of Jumu'ah has been explained by some of the ulama, and they have argued that what it implies is the hours between when the sun rises on the day of Jumu'ah until the sun passes its meridian. So the first hour would imply the period when the sun has risen. So this is the first hour. Whoever goes to the Jumu'ah at this hour will receive a reward similar to giving a camel in charity, and like that, and like that. So the last hour is when the sun has passes its meridian, and this is when the call to the Salatul Jumu'ah is made. One should endeavor to arrive the masjid at the earliest time, so as to attain these rewards. So all of those who arrive the masjid after the Imam had entered and mounted the mimbar shall have the reward of the Salatul Jumu'ah and for listening to the khutbah, but would be deprived of the special package of the day of Jumu'ah that is meant for those who arrive very early. The third etiquette of the day of Jumu'ah that seems to have been lost among many of us today is ad-dunuwu min al-imam, sitting closely to the Imam. So the closer you are to the Imam on the day of Jumu'ah, the bigger your reward, because it has been mentioned in virtually all of the ahadith from the companion of Prophet ﷺ who narrated on the etiquette of the day of Jumu'ah, that Prophet ﷺ said, wadana min al-imam, or wadana, simply like that. And he sits close to the Imam. So the closer you are to the Imam, the bigger your reward. So when you enter the masjid on the day of Jumu'ah, do not sit far away from the Imam. Rather, you should come close to the Imam. So this is the mimbar, and this is the first saf. When you arrive the masjid on the day of Jumu'ah, do not sit at the back there or to the side. Come straight to the first row that is the closest to the Imam. The Prophet ﷺ said, khayru sufufi rijal awwaluha. The best row of the men in the masjid is the first. So you should come close to the Imam so that the moment he enters the masjid and mounts the mimbar, you are among the first set of people that would be closer to him in the masjid. So this also is an abandoned sunnah of the day of Jumu'ah. Number 4, walking to the masjid. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam encourages trekking to the masjid on the day of Jumu'ah, especially if one's house is within a trekkable distance to the masjid. But if one's house is far away from the masjid such that trekking to the masjid will constitute discomfort, then the Prophet ﷺ has said, La darar wa la dirar. So one should not put himself in a state of discomfort. So do not say, I have to trek to the masjid, even if my legs will be swollen because I want to attain this reward. For those whose houses or places of work or shops are closer to the masjid, then it is the sunnah that they trek to the masjid, because The Prophet ﷺ said, for every step that you take to the masjid, Almighty Allah will write for you a reward. Allah will write for you a reward. So this is why it is sunnah to always trek to the masjid on the day of Jumu'ah if one's place of work or house is not that far away from the masjid. Now, it depends on what each individual understands to mean a long distance. So this cannot be calculated by meters or kilometers or miles. It depends on individuals' understanding of what constitutes a long distance. Number 5, wearing one's best clothes and perfuming one's body and clothes while going to the masjid. Amassa min tibi muratihi. He takes from the perfume of his wife and applies it on his body or clothes. Walabisa aslaha thiyabihi, and he wears the best of his clothes. Then for each step he takes to the masjid, Allah will give him such and such reward in big magnitude. What this implies is that for the day of Jumu'ah, even if one does not take shower at all on ordinary days, please, for the day of Jumu'ah, take a shower. Even if one does not apply perfume on ordinary days, on the day of Jumu'ah, try and apply some perfume. So you should oil your beard, oil your hair, comb it very well. Then wear the best of your clothes. Do not come to the masjid with the same clothes that you wear at your workplace. So let's assume someone is a mechanic, for example. Whose clothes are usually stained with oils, among other things. He should have a special clothes for the day of Jumu'ah that he hangs somewhere in his workshop, so that the moment the call to Jumu'ah is made, he abandons his tools, put on the best of his clothes, and walks to the masjid. But do not come to the masjid with very dirty clothes that will make it uncomfortable for people to sit closer to you or to even allow their clothes to touch yours while making the rules. So wearing your best clothes, putting on your perfume is one of the neglected etiquettes of the day of Jumu'ah. Point number 6, keeping quiet while the khutbah is going on. Now, it is very sad that you find among young people today this bad habit of being engaged with their phones while the imam is giving the khutbah. We have seen in so many instances where young people will sit with their phones, either WhatsApping or Facebooking or texting a friend, or even making and receiving calls while the khutbah is going on. The Messenger of Allah said, whoever takes a shower on the day of Jumu'ah and goes to the masjid very early and sit closer to the imam, wa ansat, and he keeps quiet. He keeps quiet. What keeping quiet implies is listening to the khutbah attentively without getting distracted by anything around you. Texting with your phone, making phone calls, chatting on WhatsApp or Facebook or wherever you chat violates the command to keep quiet, because the keeping quiet doesn't have to be with the mouth alone. It has to be with your entire body. So when we do these actions, we are violating the etiquette of listening to the khutbah and keeping quiet. Don't forget that the ulama have mentioned that while the khutbah is going on, dhikru, that is remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by tasbih, tahleel and other things, and qira'atul Quran should not be going on at that time. So the believer is expected to listen to the khutbah and abandon Quran recitation and making dhikr at that time. So if this act of worship are to be abandoned in order to listen to the khutbah attentively, why would it be permitted for anyone to be pressing his or her phone or making phone calls or receiving phone calls, among other things? We have also seen situations where some people walk into the masjid and they try to greet those that are seated listening to the khutbah. It is wrong. It is wrong to enter the masjid on the day of Jumu'ah and start greeting people while the imam is on the minbar giving the khutbah. And it is also wrong for whoever is being greeted to respond by speaking or even shaking hands. All of this contradicts the command to keep quiet and listen to the khutbah. So whoever violates any of these commands will lose the special package for attending the Jumu'ah. The Prophet said, Man qala li akhihi ansit wal imamu yakhtub faqad laga. Whoever says to his brother, keep quiet, because he was talking, while the Imam was giving the khutbah, has made a vain and purposeless talk. There is a riwayah that mentions وَمَنْ لَغَى فَلَا جُمُعَةَ لَهُ. Whoever makes a vain and purposeless talk will have no reward for Jumu'ah. So even though you will be rewarded for attending the khutbah and observing the salah, the reward for the special package or the full package of Jumu'ah, you will be deprived of that reward. So we should take note of this. When we're in the masjid, listen to the khutbah, no distraction must be allowed around us. No greeting, no response to greeting, nothing. We should just keep quiet like that. The ulama also mentioned, and this is the best opinion expressed on this matter, that even when the name of Prophet is mentioned, we should make the as-salatu, within our minds. We should not say it loudly because it contradicts the command to keep quiet while the khutbah is going on. Point number 7, not making as-salatu for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It has been mentioned in several ahadith on the etiquette of the day of Jumu'ah. The Prophet sallallahu said, "Akthiru salata alayya yawm al-Jumu'ah." On the day of Jumu'ah, make plenty of as-salatu for me. What is the meaning of as-salatu here? That is seeking the peace and blessings of Allah for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because he said, فَإِنَّ صَلَاتَكُمْ مَعْرُودَةٌ عَلَيَّ. Your prayers for me shall be brought to me. I will be informed that so and so has said, may Allah shower you with his peace and blessings. The Sahaba said, كَيْفَ تُعْرَضُ عَلَيْكَ صَلَاتُنَا وَقَدْ أَرَّمْتَ. How will our seeking of peace and blessings for you be brought to you when you would have already become sand, you would have become dust? The Prophet said, it shall be brought to me because Inna Allah harrama ala al-ard and ta'kula ajsad al-anbiya. Allah has made it forbidden for the earth to consume the body of the prophets. So the Prophet Muhammad is as he was buried in his grave right now. And every seeking of peace and blessings that we make for him shall be taken to him, especially on the day of Jumu'ah. So on the day of Jumu'ah, we should increase our seeking of Allah's peace and blessings for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This etiquette seems to have been lost on many of us. We do not seek Allah's peace and blessings for Muhammad plenty on the day of Jumu'ah. So on the day of Jumu'ah, it should be more than we do for any other day, because this is a special occasion that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has requested that we seek Allah's peace and blessings for him in uncountable times. Number 8, recitation of Surah Al-Kahf. One of the etiquettes of the day of Jumu'ah that many people seem to have abandoned today is the recitation of Surah Al-Kahf. There are reports from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraging reciting Surah Al-Kahf either in full or at least the first 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf. We have a report that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man qara'a Surah Al-Kahf yawm al-Jumu'ah," whoever recites Surah Al-Kahf on the day of Jumu'ah, kana lahu min an-nur ma bayna al-jumu'atayn. It shall be a light for him from that Jumu'ah till the next Jumu'ah. There are other reports that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam only encouraged the recitation of the first 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf. There's a riwayah that says, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever recites the first 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf, man qara'a al-ashr al-awail min Surah Al-Kahf, usima min fitnati Dajjal. Allah will protect him from the fitna of Dajjal. Masih Dajjal is the Antichrist who shall come during the last days of mankind on earth, and will cause a lot of fitna. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Man qara al-ashr al-awaila min Surah Al-Kahf, usima min fitnati Dajjal. Whoever recites the first 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf shall be protected from the tribulations, from the fitna of Dajjal. So whether we recite the first 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf only, or the full chapter of Kahf, it is one of the recommended acts of the day of Jumu'ah. It doesn't have to be on the day of Jumu'ah. It could be on the night of Jumu'ah or on the day of Jumu'ah, because there are reports that says, Man qara Surat Al-Kahf fi laylatil Jumu'ah or fi yawm al-Jumu'ah. So either it is on the night of Jumu'ah, which is the period between the Maghrib on Thursday till the Fajr on Friday, or between the Fajr on Friday till the Maghrib on Friday. Whoever recites Surah Al-Kahf or the first 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf shall be protected from the fitna of Dajjal, and it shall be a light for him from that Jumu'ah till the next Jumu'ah. So we should not forget recitation of Surah Al-Kahf on the day of Jumu'ah. Point number 9, neglecting the hour of acceptance on the day of Jumu'ah, Sa'atul Istijaba. There are reports that Prophet ﷺ said the day of Jumu'ah has 12 hours. Wafi Sa'a, and there is an hour on the day of Jumu'ah. Whoever makes supplication, La yuafikuha abdun qa'imun yusalli yas'alu fiha illa a'tahu Allah. No, any servant of Allah who stands in prayer, or not necessarily to stand for nafila, but who makes supplication during this hour and he asks Allah for a thing, Allah will definitely grant it. So this is called the Sa'atul Istijaba, the hour of acceptance on the day of Jumu'ah. We find in many of our masajid that when the imam sits in between the two khutbah, many people raise their hands in prayer and they start making supplications because it is assumed that this is the hour of istijaba. But what is more correct, wallahu ta'ala alam, and this is the view of some of the companions, including Abdullah ibn Abbas and some of the early tabi'un, is that the hour of acceptance on the day of Jumu'ah is what lies between the Asr prayer and the sunset. So in between the time of Asr and sunset, which is Maghrib, on the day of Jumu'ah, is the hour of acceptance. It has been mentioned that some of our early predecessors, Sa'id ibn Jubair, after he performs the Asr prayer, will not speak to anyone, but will engage in making supplications until the sun sets. So this is what is expected of every Muslim on the day of Jumu'ah. Though it is possible that due to the nature of your work or your institution, you may not be able to seclude yourself somewhere to make dua at this time. But even if you were sitting at your desk in your office, you should continue to chant adhkar, make dua, pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tell him the things that you want of good of this world, the dangers that you want him to ward off, among other things. So we should not neglect this hour. So many people, after the Jumu'ah prayer has been concluded, they just go back to their place of residence or work, and that's all. It's like a normal day for them. The day of Jumu'ah is a special occasion, like I mentioned earlier. We should make a judicious use of our time. So between the Asr and Maghrib prayer of the day of Jumu'ah lies the hour of acceptance of dua. We should not make the mistake of abandoning this period without making all the dua that we seek of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at this time. And finally, on this point is observing nafila after the Salatul Jumu'ah. There are several reports that Prophet ﷺ used to observe nafila on the day of Jumu'ah before he leaves the masjid. Today, you find so many people at the conclusion of the Jumu'ah prayer, they start filing out of the masjid, going to their respective domains. The ulama have mentioned that making nafila after the Jumu'ah prayer is mustahab. It is a recommended act because it is one of the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, this nafila could be 2 rakat of salat, it could be 4 rakat of salat, depending on which one intends to do. So we should endeavor to observe nafila after Salatul Jumu'ah, either 2 rakat of prayer or 4 rakat of prayer. We can do this in the masjid right before we leave the masjid for our respective domains. We can also do this when we arrive at our place of work or at home. Either ways, it is permitted and it is a recommended act that increases our reward on the day of Jumu'ah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.